Hey guys, welcome to Unit 6, Resource Use and Extraction, Section 2, Rocks versus Minerals. So we're going to start talking about mining, and we're going to be talking about why mining is good and why mining is bad, and where mining is occurring and why it's occurring there, and all that jazz. But I wanted you to kind of understand a little bit about what we are going to be referring to in a lot of cases when we're talking about mining. It's not very often that we're mining just straight up rocks. Usually if we're mining for what's called a mineral. So let's just take a quick moment and look at the difference between them. So what makes minerals different from rocks is that they are generally going to be a naturally occurring solid. They're going to have a very orderly structure, which is not something that a rock may usually have. And they're going to have a definite chemical composition, also not something a rock is usually going to have. Rocks are generally just going to be either direct from the earth or broken down or compacted stuff. And sometimes what rocks are generally made of are going to be a lot of different minerals. So usually minerals are the components that actually make up a rock when you're looking at a rock. So a couple examples of some minerals. Halite, also known as table salt. You may not know this, but most table is actually mined from the earth as a mineral. So sodium chloride is something that naturally occurs in the earth, and you can actually mine it and then sell it and use it as table salt. Okay. Gemstones, any of our things like our beautiful topazes and diamonds and emeralds and stuff like that, those are going to be also considered minerals. And then any elemental solid, if you're looking at just regular copper, if you're looking at iron, something like that, that's an element, cobalt or tungsten or calcium or something like that. If it were in its elemental form, it would be considered a mineral as well. And then another example, of course, is fool's gold, which is a substance called pyrite, which is a sulfur compound, generally going to be, I believe, with iron as well. So what really makes these different from rocks is that they have very specific, definite chemical compositions. So if I mine table salt, if I mine a halite deposit, I'm going to find just table salt. It's going to be generally a very, good, clean situation that I can mine. I may have to refine it a little bit, but generally I'm going to find that all of it is going to be very similar chemically. So you may have already asked yourself this question, but why do we even care about minerals? Why are they important? Well, generally minerals are aesthetically pleasing. They're visually appealing to humans. And in a lot of cases nowadays, we're also discovering more and more that a lot of these minerals have very, very important uses. So they can be used in a lot of things. Generally, rocks are not as visually appealing in many cases and are not quite as useful other than things like gravel or building out of stone and stuff like that. Although a lot of times if you're looking at stone, it's going to be more of a mineral-like rock, things like marble and granite and stuff like that, where there's a high mineral content in that rock. Generally, as a result, they're going to be more expensive, and they're definitely going to be sought after. In fact, in a lot of cases, whole governments will go to war over certain minerals, so it can be a really intense and in some cases dangerous situation to deal with minerals and whatnot. But they are used in a lot of things, and we'll see on the next couple slides a couple ways that they're used. A lot of times they are also very expensive and sought after because they're very difficult to form. A lot of them form through specialized crystallization from magma under specific temperature circumstances. They also may come from solidification of a solution, so we call that precipitation. And basically it means that a solid can form out of this liquid. So it's usually like a water, maybe a salt water thing, and the water evaporates, and that leaves behind our solid. So that's another example of a way that could form. And then also extreme pressure and temperature, much like with metamorphic rocks and other things, that can form these specialized minerals. So these are some of the gemstones that I mentioned, some precious and some semi-precious, meaning some are rare and beautiful, and some are just okay. But these are, I just found this one online, but there's a lot of different interpretations of the same thing. But, we found all of these gemstones, and we have assigned them to different months, so they kind of represent, the people of that month or whatever. Just like with zodiac signs, it's something that some people believe in and care about, and some people don't, whatever. But these are all examples of minerals. These are pure deposits that you can find, and they don't look like this. A ruby doesn't come out of the earth looking like this. It comes out of the earth just looking like a little, just just an ugly rock with perhaps some red parts to it, and then we go through, we refine it, and we can turn it into a very beautiful object such as this. So gemstones are a great example of minerals, and that's one of the uses, is kind of the aesthetic or the fashion side of the use for things like that. There's always the ever-present example of the smartphone. Our smartphones, we think of them as being just kind of a simple object, but they are made of a lot of different things. I'm not going to read through this entire thing, but I really, really, really highly recommend that you just pause it, kind of read through these and see what these things are like. And also realizing that in most cases, these are kind of the natural form of these substances, and so you're able to see, how that ultimately can be changed into something like this relatively old iPhone, like 2 or something. I don't know. Who cares? But the point being that they have a lot of different uses, and you can see, a lot of these minerals are used in the display, others are used in the circuitry, some are used in the battery, and even others are used, to make magnets, rare earth element magnets that can be used in the speakers and also in the vibration motor. So it's a really interesting thing to kind of think about the use of some of these minerals. So yes, some of them are beautiful and we like to just look at them, but a lot of them are things that we actually use on a regular basis all the time. And so it's very important to kind of have that respect, at least, for understanding minerals and get an idea as to why it is. When you think about something like a cell phone, I mean, people will steal people's cell phones. So clearly they are sought after. And so clearly those governments or those companies that have access to mining these substances have a really big advantage in terms of money. And so in a lot of cases, like I mentioned earlier, countries will fight and they will go to war and they will have a lot of issues with who gets, access to certain mineral deposits in certain locations and other things like that. So it is a very big deal. As we move forward, we're going to be talking a little bit more about like kind of how we mine and what are some of the side effects of mining, since we're talking about environmental science. So you'll want to make sure that you kind of keep up with that. All right, so this is pretty much it for this section. Just wanted to kind of go over minerals, why they're important. Hopefully you kind of grasp a little of that concept. Go back through and listen to a little bit more if you want to, or read back through some of the slides. Make sure you've taken notes, and I will see you in class.